Hi, so today is Friday, and hopefully by the time you see this, it is still Friday, because I'm actually going to try to edit this video today, because I actually know what I'm doing. Um, Thank you for the 15 viewers I have watched the first YouTube video I have ever posted, which was the Save Big Brother Canada rant that I did last week. Feel free to watch it if you want. If you don't, it's okay. I understand not a lot of people are viewers of this series, but for those of you who are, feel free to check out my rant. If I figure out some kind of link or something, I'll link it down below. If not, you can check it on my channel. But yeah, it's Friday today. Hopefully you'll get to see this by Friday. And here's my rant about something. And for those of you who don't know, because I'm going to try to explain this as clearly as possible, but I'm going to be all confused all over the board, because when you have ADHD, you can't explain shit properly, or in a proper recognized order. So moving forward, my name is Jack, and I feel like I have an opinion right now, and I sort of want to spread out my opinion through this really unorganized rant, and I hope that you stick with me throughout this whole, hopefully about 10 to 15 minute rant. I know last time it was about a 30-minute rant, but I was just really passionate about Big Brother Canada. But today I want to talk a bit about film and the ideas of life and art, and the relationship that they have together when a movie's being created. Because for me, initially, I felt really offended by the movie Patriots Day that was done with Mark Wahlberg and everything, because I felt, you know what, it's 3 years after this terrorist attack, and you know what, it's just wrong to have a recreation made of the movie, because I found it somewhat offensive that it's like, okay, now it's just going to be like there's going to be another terrorist attack, and then we're going to have a film about it. Like, I didn't feel it was right. Now, for those of you who know, I have seen the movie. I do have an opinion about it, but that opinion sort of transcends into today's topic, which is the relationship between life and art in respect to film. So there's a bit of an argument if life imitates art or if art imitates life. And for me, in my opinion, I feel that it's art that imitates life, not life that imitates art, because I feel like art you have to create. So if you're creating like a painting or something, you're creating it yourself. You're creating it off of an image that you feel that recognizes or symbolizes something. In respect to film, though, you have the idea that film, like if you're going to create something, you're basing it off of personal experience or something that you have been interested in or researched in or somehow created. It's not a direct reflection of life. Like you see YouTubers, vloggers and everything, they create videos based off their life, but it's not, they're not creating life itself in the word, what's that word? Like in the actual video. That took a long time to find just that one word. So like my whole like ideal is that it's like the life and art relationship, where you have to experience life in order for art to work, or like in order for an understanding of art is something that is very interesting. I always like this relationship because it's very interesting to dive into, because you have to dive into the origins of film, which leads me to my next point, because I have my whiteboard right over there. Obviously, I'm not really going to shed it out, because I have some stuff on there that I don't really want to show right now. But I have some talking points. So next talking point that I just said was origins of film. So like basically I think this whole relationship between life and art brings you down to the origins of film, which is really creating a story, creating a plot line, having the basics of a story presented in the film, however long it's going to be. And I find that that's what's interesting about it, is you have the idea of life and art in this life and art in this film, or in a story, and everything, because that's what the origins of film is basically. It's just a story. And like how it doesn't matter how successful the story is. I feel like the origins is to educate and provide a understanding of the scope of the of what the story is. Like that's the whole thing, is that when you look at art and film, I feel like you have to tend to look at what makes like what's the purpose of it, how do you judge it, and everything like that, on the basis of life and art and the relationship of origins of a film, of it creating a film and everything. I feel like a lot of it, there's a lot more around that. Obviously, you have the production perspective, like creating it, writing it, all that sort of stuff. But just looking at it as the straight aspect of a film, like you have to understand the story and how it relates to people's lives, so you can have a bit of a connection to certain people's lives, and everything. Because if you don't do that, then it may not seem as successful. Obviously, too, this whole idea of life and art, and how art imitates life, obviously transcends into the second talking point, which is the purpose of film. And like the whole purpose of film, I feel, is like for educational purposes. We see films like Avatar, Patriots Day. We have shows like The Walking Dead, the Game of Thrones, which is coming out soon. I think it's this weekend. I'm not 100% sure. I'm horrible with dates. The Hunger Games, Futurama, like shows that have a purpose of different lifestyles. You have Game of Thrones, which has a really medieval-esque lifestyle, yet has a very big culture around the way that stuff is done, the idea of politics. Yet you look at something like The Walking Dead, although it is a zombie or walker drama, it's really interesting because you have the whole idea of them on how they're surviving in that world, where the world, the idea of society is crumbling beneath them. Or like when I say society, I mean like sort of previous society of like our current world, where we have stuff being canned, food being made, like the idea of productivity is constantly being done, and like the typical Western culture of everything, and how the world works in that sense. A show like Futurama, love that show. I feel like that show, like the purpose of that is, like in an educational point of view, is like it changes per episode. Although we have this main world of a futuristic world, you have the comedy aspect of it. You have the characters like Zoidberg, Bender, Fry, Leela, and how each episode delves into a different storyline in that aspect. Obviously, Hunger Games, you have like a very strong political aspect of this dystopian environment that they are in, and how like the idea of one person can be a great leader to a political movement, and everything. So you have to think about that when you look at life and art. With a movie like Patriots Day, the purpose of it is to educate people about this terrorist event, so they don't have an idea of ignorance, or a idea of how certain events in that very large event was inspired, and like how it happened, like how the police tracked down the two terrorists, and how the police handled it, and how the whole timeline of the situation during the actual real life situation when that did happen, it creates a lot more clarity than than when the news was reporting it, because the news can only know certain information. Obviously, they had to keep some information back. And when I looked into Patriots Day and other films that were similar to it, that were documentaries about the Boston Marathon bombing, like, you have to understand the purpose of it. Like, obviously, Patriots Day is like I would say maybe somewhat of a live action-esque film where you have a reenactment of the event itself, trying to mimic real life, and like you have to think about that as like the purpose of that is for people to understand what has happened, what is going to happen, everything like that. So if there is an event, knock on wood, that may happen in the future, what's going to be done and how is it going to be done. And obviously, although it's scary and terrifying, having this idea of like having an idea and having some kind of content in your mind about that can obviously help prevent ignorance and potentially help people in the future if a scenario like that ever happened again. Obviously, it's a sad thing to think about, but like, it's the idea of education. Same thing with any kind of 9/11 movie or documentary or any kind of war movie, or like a movie like Dunkirk, or what's that one with Steven Spielberg directed it, Tom Hanks. I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Matt Damon was in it. Great movie, great war movie. Saving Private Ryan, a movie like that. Like, you have to think about the purposes of a war movie and everything, because like the ideas of ethics in film, I don't. Obviously, you have the ideas of what's ethical and what's not ethical, but at the end of the day, we're telling a story here, and the idea of ignorance and everything, and like providing the least amount of ignorance possible is something that is important when you tell a war story or a traumatic event, and everything. It's that's the whole idea, I feel like, when you're telling a story or anything with that, because you have to encompass the idea of life into art and how to get the viewer of that movie or anything, or that video, or for me right now, I'm trying to get you to understand through words of what and how I feel about this issue, and how, like, and maybe persuade you about this issue. And I know I'm not the smartest guy to do that or say that or anything like that, but look, I feel like I have an opinion for this issue, and I hope that you do listen. Probably most of you have stopped listening at this point, but thank you. I hope for the few of you that are listening to this point find it somewhat interesting and not confusing. But yeah, like, I find that like, you have to look at the purpose of the film in the educational view and whether or not it's successful in its portrayal, and that's down to your opinion. So, talking point number 3, why do we watch films? And that's the whole idea, is like, why do we watch films? And like, we have the purpose of films, but why do we watch films? So I've been listing all these examples of like having an educational view, but actually having an idea of a story to that. We watch a movie like Avatar because it has such strong environmental tones, where it's about saving the environment, global warming, the idea of the mining industry, and how much of an impact it has on Native people, not just Native Americans. You can look at the idea of the news coverage around the what's that pipeline? See, I'm just getting sidetracked today. Like the BP oil spill, what kind of impact of that coverage? You can look at, obviously, like a film of what kind of, like Deepwater Horizon, about the BP oil spill, and like that surrounding an oil spill with that in that respect. But you have to look at like, you can look at the whole idea of, okay, what kind of impact do oil spills have, and then maybe like study that and like go behind the scenes and see, in your opinion, do you think that a movie surrounding an oil spill that's somewhat of an action movie, do you think it's accurate to the reports that they had to other oil spills that happened, and everything like that? what else am I gonna say? Like, yeah, just breaking down films. This week I watched Full Metal Jacket. It's obviously a bit of a war movie. Previous to that, I watched Apocalypse Now. Two different views on the Vietnamese War between America and Vietnam. And like I feel like what makes those two movies good is that they're from the same era. They're from, I think, the 70s and 80s. What makes them, like, you have to look, okay, what makes these movies good in an educational aspect? What makes these movies bad? And then I watch Hacksaw Ridge, and it's like these three movies, Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket, and Hacksaw Ridge. What makes these movies good? What makes these movies bad? What makes it good in the idea of a purpose of these three films, yet compared to the idea of the origins of these three films, what's different in the idea of the educational aspect? Because for Hacksaw Ridge, it was based off of a true story, whereas Full Metal Jacket and Apocalypse Now, from what I believe not from what I believe. What am I saying when I say that? Full Metal Jacket and Apocalypse Now are made up, obviously. But, like, you have to look at that is, what are these two, what's the differences between these three stories, and what could that mean for the future of maybe like a war type flick, or like what kind of message do you think would be most well done and most well spoken in the film, in the three films, and yeah, like I feel like these three movies are completely different in their own aspects. One has one straight storyline, one's based off of a true story, and yet another is two parts of, it feels like two different parts woven into the same movie. Obviously, I don't really want to spoil it. If you want to watch Full Metal Jacket, Apocalypse Now, or Hacksaw Ridge, feel free to watch them however you want to watch them. But yeah, like, you have to understand, like, don't be offended by a movie being made unless it provides a defamation of character that doesn't fit into the actual theme of a movie. Then you have the ideas of ethics there, yeah, like, you have just don't be offended by movies unless they offend you to your core morals. Because you have movies, like war movies and stuff, like, if you find that offensive, fine, find it offensive, but you have to understand, for a general public, for the tens of thousands of millions of people watching that movie, they're not going to be offended by they may not be offended by that movie the same way that you are, because they didn't understand the experience that you may have gone through, or you may have heard, or you may that you have. So yeah, I'm about 18 minutes into this. I'll probably go for another 2 minutes, and then I'll probably end it here, end it there around 20ish. But yeah, like, you have to. I feel like you have to understand, when you look at life and art, how does that fit into the origins of film, the purpose of films, and then why you would want to watch the movie in respect to your ethics. And, like, that's what I found is, like, when I was initially offended by Patriots Day, I realized that I just don't, it's not right just to be offended to that one movie. Because they made movies about 9/11, they made movies about other terrorist attacks, or killing Osama bin Laden, and you have to think in the other perspectives of, well, I sort of found those movies interesting, another viewer would find that interesting, therefore, maybe I shouldn't be offended by that movie because it's trying to teach me something about this scenario. And yeah, that's the whole thing, is like the purpose of learning stuff in film. So that's what I would say. Like, at the end of the day, it's not just my opinion, it is the people watching this. I hope that if you have stayed to this point, and liked this video and find it really confusing, or wasn't and sort of understood it from what I was trying to say for the last 20 minutes, feel free to like, feel free to just subscribe, feel free, if you like my ranting format, give it a like, comment below. I sort of want like a bit of a like maybe a bit of a feedback if you can. If not, no worries. Obviously, as you can see this week, I'm not moving around that much, I'm not slouching that much, and you can see my full head compared to last week where I was just sort of confused and didn't really know what was going to happen. It was sort of funny. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week, hopefully. I'm going to try to do these Friday rants for as long as I, just to be consistent and try to rant about stuff in the same type of format. So thank you for watching. Hopefully this will be edited neat or good, and yeah, thank you.